We're going to get started with our plenary panel. I'm glad to see there was some good discussion on the break. So now we're entering our first plenary of the two-day conference, Men as Diversity Partners, being a champion of women in engineering. And I can't think of a more fitting topic given how our keynote discussion ended and some of the questions we've heard. So I'm thinking this group of gentlemen and our moderator are going to be able to answer some of those questions for us. So I'd like to introduce our moderator for today. Beth Keser is Director of Package Engineering at Intel. Beth is a PhD and a recognized global leader in the semiconductor packaging industry with over 20 years of experience. She received her bachelor's degree in materials science and engineering from Cornell University and her PhD from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Beth's excellence in developing revolutionary electronic packages for semiconductor devices has resulted in 27 patents and patents pending and over 40 publications in the semiconductor industry. Based in Munich, Germany, Beth leads the Wireless Packaging Solutions Department at Intel in the Communication Devices Group. So thank you, Beth. Take it away.
All right. Thank you, Karen. So thank you everyone for coming to We Prague, and thank you for attending our panel on Men as Diversity Champions. I personally would like to thank Jen Scott for inviting me to chair the panel, and also Intel for supporting We Local Prague as both the sponsor and the 14 or 15 women from Germany and Israel that are here today. Hey. So we're going to start off today with each panelist introducing himself and telling them a little bit about themselves, and then I'll ask a few questions, and then we can start taking questions from the audience. So.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. It is a huge pleasure for me to be here. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Ludek Janik. I'm coming from Eaton. I work at Eaton European Innovation Center, located actually in Prague, or very close to Prague. My background is chemical engineering. I spent most of my time in the field of hydrogen technologies, so that basically means hydrogen-propelled cars. And now, since my last 5 years, I'm focusing on hybrid propulsion technologies for both passenger cars and heavy-duty diesel engines. I have a family, I have 2 kids. My primary hobbies, I would say, are connected still with cars and motorbikes. And from diversity and inclusion perspective, I would say that we are doing a lot. We'll later on talk about it. And we have some, I would say, special initiatives which are supporting this topic.
Good morning. I am also delighted to be here. My name is Thierry Masurel. I am French, as you probably saw from my accent. I am working for a company called FM Global. That's an insurance company, full of engineers, because every financial decision that we make are based on what our engineers are telling us. This company is 185 years. I've been in this company for 26 years. Many different positions. I started as a field engineer. I am a space engineer by background, but I'm doing management since more than 20 years, and I'm now running the what we call the Paris operation, which means the southern part of Europe. So it's all the countries, which is France and below that. And aside of that, I am a father of 5 kids, with only 1 wife. 4 boys, 1 daughter, very diverse. And why I'm here today, because I am a big fan of diversity. I really believe diversity is a golden opportunity for our company or for the world.
Thanks. Morning, everybody. I'm Alistair McQueen. I work for Cummins, one of the silver sponsors. Thanks for inviting me on this panel today. I've been with Cummins 20 years now. Started as a placement student, so I'm a kind of a product of our hire to develop strategy. I was sponsored through my master's in mechanical engineering, and then kind of came back to Cummins. As an engineer, I've worked in 3 different business units for Cummins, the turbochargers, power generation, and now I have a European role leading research and technology for Cummins in Europe. So why I'm here, there's I guess several reasons really, not just one. One is I sit on our technical women's initiative leader team, so it's part of my role in Cummins to kind of be included in this and promoting this. But also, kind of a few years back, I was at an opening of a 3M Innovation Center, and we talked about, our goals to kind of, have a mix of 50-50 male and female employees. And we were talking about, well, how many students are in the university at that time? And I think there was maybe 10% female students in engineering. And it's like, well, 10%, 50%, how's that going to work? So we need to do something different. So, since then it's, if nobody does anything different, that's never going to change. And then the other thing is, I'm married, I have 3 daughters. My wife's an engineer, engineering background. She also works for Cummins as well. So it's kind of important for me. I get a, remuneration for her success as well. But also for my daughters, it's really important for me to kind of see that they have a successful future. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is not yet. I'll take this one. My name is Konstantin Mihov. I originally come from Bulgaria. I've been living in Germany for now 10 years or so. And I work for Continental, which is in the automotive industry currently. And what the industry is going through, as we all know, is it's unknown. It's an uncertainty. And one of the things that excites me about the topic of diversity in particular is that if we cannot solve this issue, how are we going to solve any of the other societal issues that are ahead of us? How are we going to build a world in which we have different kind of mobility, in which we don't have diseases the way that we have them today, in which inequality in all kind of ways is also resolved? And so this is one of the fundamental things that I take care of at Continental. How are we solving that issue? And I have a global responsibility for the topic of diversity at Continental, making sure that our culture evolves together with or ahead of the curve. And one of the things that I am looking for, particularly here, is the understanding of how networks work. How can we connect more with one another? Because this is not a question that a single company, whether one that we represent or any of the ones that you represent, is going to solve. It is not. We talked about education earlier. That came up in the keynote speech as well. These are things that we all have to join forces to do. And whether that's a gender diversity topic, whether that's an innovation that needs to come from expertise in various technical areas, whatever it is, it requires networking skills. And that's something that we can practice so much well here. And that's what I'm particularly excited about.
Good morning. My name is Lukáš Vaculík. I am from Czech Republic. I am from company T Connectivity, located in Kuřim. I am working in T Connectivity 10 years. My whole career I connected with the process engineering, and currently I lead the process engineering team already 6-7 years. And when I started with the leading of the process engineering team, the team was just the members of the team was just the men. And now during the time we really graduated the members of the women in the team, and the team is really working much more better, what we will discuss maybe during our panelist discussion. So I'm looking forward for this discussion. And from my life, I have 3 women at home, my wife and 2 daughters.
All right, thank you. It looks like we have a very culturally diverse panel, so this is really great. I'm from the US myself. I've been living in Munich for 1 year, so I'm beginning to understand the German perspective, but I think we'll get a lot of different perspectives on diversity here today. So I'm going to start out with a couple of questions for the panel, and then we can start taking questions from the audience. So first off, I want to ask, what advice would you give to men who are mentoring women?
Okay, so for me it was interesting to hear the question because I don't consider any difference, right? I mean, I haven't think about it that it should be of any difference. Maybe one thing which I would advise is not to come in bias, not to maybe expect something, because I have some culture background. Obviously, it is natural, but my advice would become open-minded, maybe think ahead of some potential issues, but really think or listen actively and listen openly. That's the one singular point which I would make.
Can I add to that? So, totally agree with the listen, a bit more listening. And this is kind of, personal at home as well as mentoring at work. Through that listening, maybe you'll hear about some problems. It's not always your job as a mentor to fix those problems. Talking through them, helping somebody figure it out themselves is actually really powerful. I think the other thing that is really important is actually being selective and partnering the right mentor and mentee relationship, and also then setting out what success looks like for that relationship. And then really making sure you don't focus on a project review. When things are a little bit difficult and maybe you're not quite sure, not to then, just talk about technical things, the things that you're comfortable with, talk about leadership, talk about development, and really kind of, push on those things. I've been in bad mentoring situations where, it was just a project review. That's no good to me. It's not developing, it's not helping me. So that'd be my kind of advice.
I agree with everything that was just said. I will still believe that there is slight differences. I think that when you talk a lot with women in their job, the level of self-confidence may be slightly different with men. So whenever I will suggest some manager to manage or some mentor to coach, I think they need to think about that and try to push on the self-confidence elements and make people thinking that yes, they can. I mean, it's something that they can do like any man. History shows that I think when a man has done a job for a few months or years, he knows 20% of the job and he thinks he's ready for the next step. Woman is probably when they are at 80%, they still believe they are not ready. So I will insist on that side, on the mentorship part, because I think it's important.
Yeah, I think Ashley kind of talked about that a little bit this morning as well, of saying, she took stretch assignments where she didn't know about mining, she didn't know about coal and things, but she still went for the job anyway. And that's really important. So she didn't feel she qualified, she didn't have the experience, but she went for it. So, that's really important. And I thought that was, a real key piece of her discussion this morning.
I advise that more important or very important, it's also motivate the women and help them in the increase the confidence in the technical expertise and train them and show them that they will believe themselves, that they can solve also the technical things, technical topics, same like the man. Yeah, don't make any differences. Yeah.
I don't know if it's necessary for each one of us to chime in, but maybe just a closing remark. Just do it, and make sure that you're ready for it. Because not everyone can be a mentor, and it is important to realize whether one is ready or not to do that.
Yeah, I think from a woman's perspective, I like what you've said about taking risks. You hear that there'll be a job description with 10 skills, and a man will look at it and say, I have 4 of those skills, I can do it. And a woman will look at the job description and say, oh, I don't have 2 of those skills, so I can't do it. So just take a risk, be confident. But also another thing that I found is you have to network. And since women are often isolated, there's not very many of us in the workplace, I tend to eat lunch at my desk. Like, my motivation is to get my work done and get home to my kids, right? But you learn a lot just by going to lunch with people. Going out, the guys are going out to lunch, they're going to the cafeteria or going out. So do that and be part of that group, one-on-one or in a group, because that networking really helps you build relationships, and that helps for your success in the future.
I will add one comment if I can. I think you also need to look for any opportunity to be visible. So get out of your comfort zone. If there is an opportunity to be part of the projects where you will have access to senior people, go for it. Because visibility is key in the career of any people.
Yeah. So there's a saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know, but it's really who knows what you know. You have to get out there and get visibility. So my next question would be, what do you think is the biggest thing you've learned or biggest surprise in being an advocate for diversity within your organization?
Okay, honestly for me, that it really works. That's the key for me. So I used to work in many, three companies, or not that many. I've experienced teams where we were all male, and then in Eaton, now it's getting much more diverse, and I can see the big difference. It was similar technical field for me, so I can compare one-to-one. So for example, things like concept preparation, development, they are such a different ideas, right, if we have a diverse team. And the outcome, the technical solution, it is much more complex at the end. So for me, the learning, it works, and it's not just I would say, some modern trend.
Okay. So for me, it's kind of, I'll give you the honest view. There's positives and negatives for me. The positive is the engagement and the drive from the senior level within our company. We're nearly 100 years old, and we now just have our first female chief technical officer, so we're kind of making some progress. But so it's great. We're kind of having D&I inclusion initiatives, and we're really pushing that, and it's coming down from the senior management in the company. The disappointing bit for me is the pockets that just don't get it within the company. I've kind of facilitated sessions, and some sessions have been great, some sessions have been a complete train wreck, and I just think, wow, there's a lot of work still to do. And so, I don't want to paint a picture that Cummins is perfect on this. We're doing a lot of work on it, but it's still worrying that people just don't quite get it and think, all we're trying to do is increase the number of women in the company, promote women, give women pay rises, and that's all we're trying to do. And it's not that. It's about getting the best talent in the company to have that diversity inclusion in, and then we will be, more productive. There is a business case for doing this. It is proven that it works, but some people just don't get it. So communication of what we're trying to do and getting the buy-in is really, really important.
Yeah, I think you're right when you say that engagement of senior management is key. And senior manager, very often to be convinced, they need facts. So it's not about telling stuff, it's just about facts. And there are many studies showing that the more diverse the company is, and the more diverse it is at the senior level, the better the company, the more money the company makes, and the better it works. So that's as simple as that.
Okay, it's working? Okay. When I thought about it, what was different between the men's team and the diversity team, which I lead now, it's that we can absorb the more diversity tasks with the better results, because we have wider range of the view to see around us the solution for the simple tasks. Yeah.
Well, the thing that has surprised me, so I've been working in this area for 2.5 years or so, and what has surprised me the most is that I think diversity has a branding problem. It's something that, whenever you raise it in most men-dominated rooms, they don't want to hear about this. Don't come to me with a business case. I know, but this is pure. They'll find all kind of excuses. It's correlational data. It's in the U.S. data. It doesn't work in our company, so all of these excuses they're there, and they're probably there like in any other discussion that you'd have about any kind of other topic that people just don't want to accept or embrace. And that's why I call it a branding issue. And that's why what we need to do is to rebrand what diversity and inclusion actually means. And that, of course, takes effort and time and investment. A few of the things that we've learned over the past 2 years that we've been doing things differently is that it takes the commitment from the board, from top down, Because without that, you're not going to get a visibility. People would not understand that this is part of the company vision, part of what we want to stand for. Another thing that it takes is to have a positive view on what you want to achieve. And you know, we've done our part in trying to do diversity and inclusion trainings and unconscious bias trainings, most of which end up antagonizing people even more because they're pointing fingers. They're saying, it's your fault, it's your bias, you're the one with the unconscious bias, which makes people, you know, back off. So we need to have a positive understanding of what is it that we're trying to achieve, which is what you are saying, you know, coming up with examples of, yes, in this case, we managed to solve this customer issue only because we were able to evaluate it in a different way, because we had a more diverse team. And the third thing is to have a broad spectrum of initiatives. Doing that only by diversity and inclusion trainings, doing only by women's conferences, only by this or that, is not going to work. We need to reach top management, we need to reach the bottom, we need the middle managers that we talked about earlier as well. We need you know, to make sure people have the skills, the right leadership skills, the right management skills, the right coaching skills. We need to make everyone actually feel that diversity is not just about women, which you know, particularly in certain countries, this is when they hear diversity, they automatically equate it with it. And that, of course, leads again to this in-group, out-group way of thinking. And so we need to continue highlighting all of these in concert, so that the brand actually changes. Yeah, so that's.
All right, so I think we're ready to start taking some questions from the audience, if there are any. Okay.
Actually, not a question, but a comment once again. I think you're on the right track. We at TE have done the journey, and we're since 2012 in that game, or in that strategy. That is part of our strategy roadmap. We focused on inclusion as a setting the stage with inclusion, an inclusive environment where people feel valued. We focus on diversity because we know the beauty of it. It should bring ROI, but you know, what is the measurable part of it really? And so we're getting back to focusing on engagement, really, what you said. And I think that's the key. We all are 100% diverse, as we said earlier. We can all bring the differences to the table. And I'm in this game now for over almost 20 years. And I can say it's each and every one that brings the different and contributes, but it's also how can we reflect it in KPIs? Because the world we live in is mostly driven by KPIs. And so we just actually had a workshop on HR analytics and how we can bring that HR component and the analytic data to the table. And it remains a challenge. And I agree with you, it's a branding issue. It's also a definition issue. What does it mean in each culture and for each company culture? And I think for each company, it means something different. And we do need to network across the globe, across companies. So that's just a comment. And regarding mentoring, I think it's really important that people do step up as mentors and pay it forward by giving back. So just a comment.
I'm really thrilled that you brought the analytics bit, because that's also something that, I mean, if you think about it, analytics is still in any case based on something that someone had to build. And the question becomes, who are the people who are building those algorithms? You know, this fantastic example that Microsoft had on Twitter a couple of months ago with this Theo, which was an artificial bot on Twitter, which they had designed, of course, to be a conversational thing that, you know, people would just interact with it. Within a week, they had to shut it down because people were interacting in it in a way that was turning that bot into a neo-Nazi. You know, and this is because they never thought that someone will use it in that way. And that's the problem of HR analytics sometimes. If you design it just for a specific purpose, you won't, you know, see all the other outcomes that might occur out of that. And you might be ignoring a group of people that just don't fit your algorithm because you never thought about including those people in that conversation. So building these kind of systems, we always have to think, how can we actually make sure that we capture this full, broad range of perspectives, so that the system itself can deal with that diversity.
Yeah, I think you know, we've talked about as well, how do you measure inclusion? And measuring diversity is pretty easy, but measuring inclusion, a little bit difficult. But if you think about it, they're not mutually exclusive events. So if you actually do have an inclusive company, and then that will be reflected in the diversity as well. So I think they do actually complement each other. So I wouldn't kind of worry too much on how do I measure inclusion, because I think it will be reflected. You'll know that it is coming. You'll see in other statistics as they grow. Things like retention. People changing jobs, even leaving the company, even moving different jobs, moving out of engineering, all of those things link back. So that's why there's a big and in the diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, one point you have to be careful is that not everything can be measured. So, and I think that diversity is much wider than gender. I think you mentioned that earlier, but I see diversity as race, color, social origin, religion, sexual. I mean, it's many, many things. And there are many countries where you just cannot measure. The law does not let you do it. So we need to find other ways because you cannot use just that.
And somebody mentioned earlier about invisible diversity, I think, in an earlier session. So how do you measure something you can't see or even know? Okay. So, don't worry too much.
All right, another question?
Hi. So we've talked a lot about diversity and inclusion, and I always applaud the companies that send their men up here and they are the shining examples of where companies need to be. For those of us who either used to or currently work for companies that are not these shining examples, how do you go from, because we've been talking about diversity for 10 years? Now, about companies have been, pretty much every company in engineering has been talking about diversity. How do you make the switch? How have you guys made the switch from just talking about diversity to getting to inclusion? Because you can talk about diversity until you're blue in the face. Until you get to inclusion, you're never going to get anywhere. So how have you guys made that transition?
Well, actually, first of all, I think it's a cycle. So, there was the 20s, the women's rights movement, then the 60s, 70s, human rights movements. And so, all of these things, they come, in waves. And, before the whole diversity question, there was, corporate social responsibility, and now the two are merging. And, yeah. So I think that's just an indicator that our society is actually not moving quickly enough to resolve these issues, the fact that we still have them. What I think has made the change for Continental in particular is the rebranding, because before that the association it is about women only, and because of that, if I want to participate as a man, I need to have some stakes in this, whether it's because my wife or my children. It was not because it was the right thing. It was not because, and I think the moment the conversation gets to fairness, then you start losing people. And again, it's this in group, out group, me versus you, and that's the dangerous path to go on. So it's having the conversation around, not about a specific target group. It's about saying it's good leadership practice to think about diversity and inclusion. It's good leadership practice, and yes, on some aspects of diversity, like gender, we do need to pay a special attention to and make sure that this is something that we also monitor and that we track, and we do have a KPI and we do have a target. But it's not the only thing that we want to change, because, and this is the argument that we give internally, and we say if we cannot change on this, if we cannot make a significant improvement in our gender diversity ranks, how can we expect that we will be able to work with our new customers, customers like Ubers or the ones that are not the classic automotive companies in the world? So that argument then sinks in, and people realize, well, it is about me. It is about my work. And that's why they start realizing, well, this is a litmus test of whether we'll be able to make it. And that's how they get engaged, and they realize, well, okay, I need to pitch in this. Yeah, that's one of the things we've done.
Yeah, I think the leadership's is key. Sorry. Obviously, messages can come down, but that doesn't just make it work automatically. I think, there was a stat earlier today, 1 in 10 person might get this, so, go work with that one person. But if you can find that one person, in each part of your company, and then pull them together as a group, and then find leaders who people want to work with, work for, and follow, and believe in and trust, then they're the people who you then need to, pioneer things. And then the other thing I would say is, try different things, do different things. Not everything will work. Some things will fail, but generally things will actually work out and improve the situation in your company. So it's finding the right leaders, trying some things and getting out there and doing it.
In my opinion, if we exclude the fact that the inclusion and diversity is something that is supposed to happen, it is a matter of survival of the companies, of the corporations. Eaton, for example, we are active in 175 countries around the globe. In our innovation center alone, we have 22 or 23 nationalities out of 130 people. So if we wouldn't strive hard for diversity and inclusion, especially inclusion, we just couldn't do it. We couldn't be active in the field. We just wouldn't be able to work, right? Especially in tough conditions, especially right in this Central Europe where we have 3% unemployment rate. So even just this pure business, let's say, approach, it is essential and necessary to act like that.
I think just to add on what Alistair was saying, I think one of the keys is, the question basically is how do you turn a momentum into a movement? And that is something that takes perseverance, it takes the networking skills that this is exercising that we need also to do internally. We need to connect all the people whom we, the ones that are far in between that might already be in that boat and make sure that they feel that they're part of a community. Because if each one of us feels we are an island in our world, first we probably wouldn't be here, and then we would probably never stand out and say, we believe in this. And so it is important to make sure people believe in it, and little by little they'll grow. The group of people who are behind this, it'll grow.
I also think that you need to challenge the senior managers, because if they talk but they don't make the decisions and lead by example, there is something wrong. But you need to be conscious also that when you make that decision, sometimes you are against some of the people's feelings. So I made the decision not that often to take my engineering manager as being a woman, and she's younger than most of the people reporting to her. She's in the room. So. And so my first reaction after was, okay, I knew that some of the people would not like it. So I had an open discussion with them. And say, okay, guys, if you have a problem with my decision, let's share it. And it was a tense meeting. But I think you have to go there in order to people to strongly believe that, okay. And I think now they are all convinced that this was the right decision to make. But taking the risk of that is not always easy. So if some manager in your company is not doing that, but they don't walk the talk, I think you need to challenge them. Say, guys, if you really believe in it, go for it.
All right, I think we're ready for another question. On this side of the room? Okay.
So I'm Paris from Cummins Turbo Technologies in Huddersfield, even though the accent is wrong. So kind of following along from that question, how do you engage other men in your company to become champions, so kind of recruiting them for this social movement per se? So something that I work with is trying to champion men as well, but obviously I can only do so much because you have a distinct perspective from being where you are. So is there anything that you do to kind of recruit them to the understanding besides the unconscious bias type general group talks?
I think the lead by example element is key. If you demonstrate that you are yourself making the decisions to have diverse people in your group, then people will follow you. If you don't do it, just talk it, people will never follow you.
I think so. You're probably aware of, hi Paris, a few of our initiatives and things. But so one thing is project related. So we have initiatives each year. So right now we're running 6 initiatives. So that's a great way to pull people in. So we run projects, and you need a team to do that project. So I am sponsoring our social media project this year, and so it's then I use that to say I need some help. Come and work on this team. And then, that brings people in and then connects them. They see some benefit of what they're doing, and then hopefully they stick around, and then it kind of grows naturally from there. So, that's one simple way. I talked about one thing that didn't work, previously, so some diversity and inclusion. We ran a session where the manager said, you all need to go to this discussion, and I faced a room full of men with their arms folded, basically not talking to me for about 2 hours, which was really, really complicated and difficult. So that's one thing that didn't work, cracking the whip and forcing and saying you've got to do it. So, so we need to rethink about, how we actually, get people engaged from that point of view. Devna's nodding as well. I think she knows the day I'm talking about.
There's a lovely anecdote that one of our senior colleagues in the U.S. shared not long ago. So he has like two colleagues of his who are our leaders of our what you call diversity networks around the world. And for about 2 years, they've been doing that mostly on a voluntary basis, outside of, in addition to their day jobs. And for 2 years, they've just periodically been reporting to him about the development and what they've achieved. They got invited to one of these women's conferences organized by Automotive News in the US to speak about what they have achieved at Continental over the past 2 years. And they said, wouldn't it be fantastic if Jeff comes along? And he's someone who, has been in front of Congress, is being grilled on all kind of issues. Someone who doesn't take, being in front of a lot of people as a challenge anymore, especially even with hard questions. But one of the things he said is, for the first time entering into a room full of women only, he had the realization of what it must feel for all of you to be in most rooms. And he is a convert ever since that moment. And of course, it took 2 years to convince him that whatever we're doing is valuable and that he should pay attention, he should actually attend, which is this tipping point. So he needed that tipping point. And telling him, go to the next conference, probably not going to work. But if they're already inclined, it's about seizing these kind of opportunities for them to have this experiential learning of seeing the world through your eyes. And that's what made it for him. And that's what made him a strong convert of what we tried to do. So we need even more people here next time as well, right?
You've been waiting.
Thank you for giving this chance. Okay. Hi, I'm Khushbu from General Motors, India. And I have one perspective and a concern. So my perspective is, I have been doing this research, why companies are doing this diversity and including women and other places. So, and also I discussed this thing with my leadership, and I asked this question, why you're doing this thing, or women, and so many things around the diversity. So I get an answer, which is very surprising to me also. So they said 80% of the wallet is in women's hand. And it's not just a charity that we are doing, it's a business. It's completely a business, because we do have women we are having 80% of the money that we are going to make the decisions, including groceries, clothes, and cars even. So this is the one reason that they say about the branding, as you said. So this is my perspective. And I have a concern regarding the diversity inclusion, which happens at every level of the organization. So I'll give you my example. When I got recruited in General Motors, so when I got recruited, so as soon as I got the chance, okay, the displayed in the college, okay, you got recruited. So what men will say, okay, she's a girl, that's why she got it. Or if a man would be there, they say, oh, he deserves it. So how you're going to deal with those things? And the same applies when I see in my friends' organizations and my organization also. So when somebody is promoted, they say, right now there's many things going on diversity. That's why she got it. So how you're going to deal with this type of things, because there's something that we need to socialize more on and make men more aware of it. So, yeah.
Well, I think actually one of the first things to say is that, this is not a unique thing for a woman to experience, because men also get these kind of comments. Not, you got hired not because you're a man. He got hired because he's a friend of X and X, or he knows X. He's the son, or whatever. So, not to belittle the fact that happens, of course, to a lot of women. One of the things that is so important, this is where HR has to really step up, is to make sure that the hiring processes are put in a way that these kind of comments, if they come, they can immediately be backed with a counter argument. And of course that involves a lot of diagnostics, understanding the candidate, understanding the jobs, and to the best of my knowledge, very few companies have actually cracked the code of making sure this is implemented. Not to mention all the legal aspects that vary from country to country, where in some countries, like in the US, you're not allowed to store any kind of gender data together with the candidate's applications, which means that you have a very different perspective on the candidate themselves. But eventually, it becomes clear, and that doesn't stop rumors, which is the nasty side of it, because rumors are not something that, with a counter argument and with data, you can stop. You can minimize the impact, but you cannot stop it. But so I think, and that comes back to the leadership question, which is something that you also highlighted. It's about how do we set the right leadership tone? Because it's the leader's responsibility when he hears something or she hears something like that to say, you're totally wrong. This is not the reason why we hired her. These are the reasons why we hired her. And if you're not on board with that, then tough luck, because that's my choice.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's sad, but yeah, it happens all the time, and it's sad that we have to defend decisions that we make, on who we employ. But it really then just comes down to everybody, getting everybody on board with the message of it's about getting the best talent into the company. It isn't whether you're male or female. It's about the best talent, and I'm pretty sure the hiring manager who hired you looked at your capabilities, your education, and your future potential, and said, that's why you're going to get the job, against, other employees and things. So it is just, fortunately, we're going to have to keep driving and grinding that message that it's about getting the best people.
And it's like kids. You need to say things again and again and again for people to believe it. But the message has to come from the absolutely senior level. It has to come from the CEO or the CEO, because then people will get it. Okay, we take those people because they are talented, not because they are black, women, whatever.
And this is actually where we need your help. So if the rest of the men see the good results, so they believe it. So all of us are doing a good job, right, in our day-to-day work. But what we mentioned earlier, to not be afraid to stand up, to show the results, to not be able to present, to take some risk, because that's how it becomes visible by your help who are already in that position. This is very important.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, I'm Elena. I think we are speaking to people that is confident with the diversity, and we are not a majority. We are firms that believe in it, and we are engaged with diversity, gender, everything. And even so, if you look at our companies, you will see that the percentage at the basic stage is maybe half-half or 60-40 or something like that. If you go to middle managers, it decreases when it comes to female people. And when you go to top managers, it gets like, well, one 100%, then 100% as much higher. So we have a problem because we are half-half, I think. And we are talking with respecting people that is engaging with that. So what can we do? Thank you.
Shall I take that one?
Picked it up first.
Well, and we need to qualify the half-half actually, because half-half in the population, yes, but we're not half-half in certain degrees, which is where we need to start much earlier. But that's sort of where the company's immediate bottom line starts, and so that's something that we need to start working on. Last night we had a conversation about with the colleagues Daniela there from Emerson, thank you, about an experience that they made in the U.S. where I think it was in the U.S. where you had volunteers, activities, and children could actually experience what it is to do an engineering task in a game format, and it was something that everyone got hooked, independent of whether you're a boy or a girl. Now, when was the last time you walked into a toy store and you saw, in the girls section, something that looked like an engineering task, or a tool, or a game, or something like that? Now, these are some of the things that we can't have an immediate impact today because we don't, none of our businesses is any in that. But it's something that we need to start questioning with our own surroundings, with our own environments. What we can do as companies is to make sure that we go to schools, we go to universities, and we come up with ways to portray the work that we do as something that is exciting to anyone, any of the kids. I think that's an important step, and it's not the step that is going to cut everything, but it's a step that is going to pay off in the long-term future. And unfortunately, companies are bad at long-term planning, and that's why also these conversations are so much more difficult, because they're not about the bottom line for the quarter, they're about the next 5 to 10 years. And most managers are not going to be their role, most likely they're not going to be with the company in the next 10 to 20 years, on the levels that you talk about, because they're 40, 50 years old, particularly in Europe and in the US.
And if you look at the engineers, when I was in engineering school, I think we had 2 or 3% of women. That was the fact. So when you work for an engineering company after, at the beginning, the choice is you have 97 men for 3 women. The good thing is that it has changed a lot. It depends on the country. But in France, we are pretty lucky because we have around 20% plus of women in engineering school. And then the key is to recruit them. The recruitment means that you are building the future with the people that you recruit today. So you need to ensure that when you recruit engineers, you have at least the same percentage that what you can find in the school. And today for us, I think we're in 25+% of women in engineering, and we see them going up. So it also comes with the fact that the more people you have, the more opportunity you will get.
Yeah, I think there's different problems that need different solutions. So for recruiting, very senior women into the company, yes, there's some progression coming up naturally through the company, or you can recruit from externally, but then the pool is smaller, so that's a harder task. Development and leadership opportunities between kind of 2 to 5 years seems to be a problem for many businesses. When I've sat in a lot of these events, people decide to move away from engineering, move away from the company, have lifestyle changes and things. So there's a different mid-career, I guess, initiatives that we need to take. And then you kind of got graduate development and things. And we run into problems, whereas, in 2014, our mix of graduate intakes was 89 to 11% and things, because we always tried recruiting the same people, mechanical engineers, because we're an engine company. That's what we'd go for. But what we've done is opened up to STEM subjects as well. And now that, since 2014, we've now increased that to 34%. So, it's a bit of a step change. But the non-traditional engineering degrees are now, they've moved from 6% to 18%. So we bring people in from sciences, marketing degrees, psychology degrees. It doesn't really matter. It's about the person and the potential that we see and how we can develop them within Cummins. So, I think at different stages of your career, there's certainly different things. And then even within engineering, we're trying to now develop 3 streams that you can go down. One is you can be more of a manager. One is you can be a tech specialist. And one is you're more product focused. We've never really, in the past, helped people develop just as a tech specialist. If you want to develop, you need to be a manager. You need to manage some people. That's the only way you're going to develop. You've got to, manage a group. And that's crazy. We've realized that now. And so, there's new things that we're doing all the time. But I think, giving those different opportunities for your career and then helping people, develop through the different stages is really important.
One last remark, and then we'll take one more question. Go ahead.
I strongly believe that it really starts in a very young age. So I can see it in my home. I am lucky to have a son and daughter. So if I'm doing something technical, I keep my daughter as well. And I can tell you the shining eyes are from both of them, okay? What we do with Eaton to support it, so we have an initiative or activity which we call Engineering for Children. And this is where we have this is for elementary schools for very young children from 6 to 12. So we do like a small task for them. For example, last year we had to build a LED light, just a few components which we prepared, making sure it's completely safe. And so they build it up themselves with our help, either at the school or in our innovation center. And I would say this is a superior experience also for us because they love it. So you can think of something like that. I believe that it really helps.
All right, one more question from the audience. One more. One more.
You can make a fire question.
Hello, congratulations to the 5 of you. I'm a doctor in chemistry with 2 master's degrees, 1 MBA. I think I'm very lucky to work for Emerson. What happened to me was that I want an advice from your side. When I came to work to Emerson, I realized that they were looking for engineers and in metallurgical things more, because we do butterfly valves. So I came and said, I'm sorry, I make a mistake. I'm a chemist and I'm composite plastic. So I'm more in polymer science. So they said, no worries. There were three guys. Just come and sit down. So I went through these interviews, and it was very challenging. And at the end, they said, well, I was pregnant for 6 months. So, but I was not sure that I wanted to have that job because I wanted to be with chemists, not with engineers. Then I said, well, you got the job. Then I said, no, but I don't speak Dutch. No, you will learn it. Yeah, but I'm pregnant. No worries. So that was already for 11 years ago that I work in here. And I wanted to stop with my job twice already because I was pregnant for my second child. And I went to my manager. So after a cup of coffee, then okay, I stayed and I got pregnant for the 3rd time. So I wanted to stop. So I continue already for 11 years. Now the advice will be, and I'm very happy, and I'm really happy to have my manager already for such a long time. My question will be, if you will hire a pregnant woman, and if so, I think so, what will be the commitment you would like to hear from us? Being pregnant.
I have 5 kids, so I cannot, to me, you are lucky to be able to be pregnant. We can't do that. So, I will not make any difference on the people. The only things that I think what you are looking for is not pregnancy, is not whatever, is what that person can bring to the table. And if she is pregnant and you know that you will have some leave, then you will cope with that. If that's the right person, you will not change your decision. So I think you are right to try. You are right to apply. Back to what we said earlier, you really need to be visible and to apply to things, because it's not if you think that you may not have all the skills that the people in front of you will not see you as the best out of the choice that he has. So go for it.
Yeah, I would agree, and I can confidently say there are certainly managers in Cummins that will, because that happened exactly to my wife. Through a difficult period at work where we were restructuring, so kind of, everybody had to almost reapply for their job. And so it's kind of like, I've got to reapply for my job and I'm pregnant. I stand no chance. But to her surprise, and actually it was Mark Firth, who sat on this panel 2 years ago, was the hiring manager. So it happens. Sorry.
All right, so we want to close the panel with maybe a few positive remarks from each of you for the audience.
So I'm really happy that I can participate here. It was very interesting discussion with a lot of interesting points which we discussed. Yeah, and I think that the diversity and the inclusion, it's a really topic which we are focusing on it, and it's still, let's say, improving and better and better.
I think I'd say keep on what you're doing. Believe in your uniqueness rather than in what you represent as a woman. Believe in yourself. And continue to seek alliances and network, because that's what we need, not just for whatever we are trying to do, but just for the comfort and for the support. And we heard that again earlier today. The friends network that we have is what's going to make us confident, what was going to make us strong in what we try to achieve.
I'd say, well, firstly, thank you for this, and this is a great event. I'm excited for today and tomorrow as well. I'd say don't give up on men. We can be a bit slow on the uptake. I'm constantly told that. So, bear with us. I am confident that we will get there and kind of figure this out and make a difference.
Thank you, too. I will say two things. The first thing is, yes, you can. I mean, you need to believe in you, I think, and if it's not, you should apply, and even if you are not successful the first time, maybe you will be successful the second time, the third time. Second point, do not neglect visibility. Visibility is key. The more visible you will be in your company, the more chance you will have.
Coming back to small children and our future, next time you're going to be buying a present for your daughter, consider buying Lego Technics instead of Barbie doll.